A woman was on her way to a meeting and used her last money to buy food for an elderly man. A month later, she couldn't believe what she saw. A simple act of kindness leads Emily to a series of events that change her life forever. Between the pressures of being a single mother and the challenges of a toxic work environment, she finds hope in unexpected places. Loves are rekindled, friendships blossom, but new challenges are on the horizon. The rain gently tapped against the windshield as Emily drove to work. Her mind was overwhelmed with the day's worries, a crucial meeting with the board, and her constant concern for her daughter, Lily. Since the divorce, Emily had taken sole responsibility for caring for the girl, who was dealing with health issues that required constant medical attention. The medical bills were a heavy burden, but Emily did her best to hide her worries from Lily, always keeping a smile on her face. Emily parked her car and stepped into the local cafe to grab her usual breakfast. As she entered, she noticed an elderly man ahead of her in line. He was dressed in simple, worn-out clothes, and his expression was one of exhaustion and hunger. The man ordered a sandwich and coffee, but when he tried to pay, it became clear he didn't have enough money. Emily watched as he counted his coins, realizing he was a few dollars short. Without hesitation, Emily approached the cashier and said, "I'll pay for him." The elderly man looked up, surprised, and for a moment he seemed unable to speak. "Thank you, ma'am. You don't know how much this means to me," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Don't worry. We all need help sometimes," Emily replied with a warm smile. As she waited for her own order, Emily thought about the importance of the meeting she would have later. She was nervous, knowing that the outcome could affect not only her career but also Lily's future. Emily loved her job as a project manager at a large tech company, but she knew the market was competitive, and she would need to stand out to secure her position. "What's your name?" the elderly man asked, interrupting her thoughts. "Emily," she replied. "And yours?" "George," he said, still looking emotional. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to find me. You never know. Sometimes life has its twists." Emily smiled, appreciating the simplicity of the interaction. She paid for her coffee and said goodbye to George, feeling warmth in her heart. Upon arriving at the company, Emily felt the tension in the air. The looks from her colleagues were a mix of curiosity and expectation. Finally, she was called into the conference room. She sat down, trying to remain calm as the directors settled in. Mr. Thompson, her boss, began the meeting with praise for her work. "Emily, you have been a key player on our team. Your dedication and talent are undeniable," he began. Emily relaxed a little, feeling recognized and valued. However, Mr. Thompson's expression changed as he announced a team change. "We are hiring a new member for our management team," he said, pausing for what felt like an eternity. "Mark Hudson will be the new project manager." The name dropped like a bomb. Mark Hudson was Emily's ex-husband, and the divorce had been anything but amicable. They had a complicated and painful history. Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. How could she work side by side with someone who had caused so much pain in her personal life? The meeting continued, but Emily could barely focus. Her mind was swirling, trying to process the unexpected news. After the meeting, a colleague approached her, noticing her state. "Emily, are you okay? You look a bit pale." "Yes, I'm fine," Emily lied. "Just processing some things." Emily knew she would need to find a way to cope with the situation, both to keep her job and to protect her peace of mind. With a deep breath, she prepared herself to face the challenges ahead. In the days that followed, Mark's arrival at the company became the main topic of conversation among employees. Emily tried to keep her composure, but Mark's presence was a constant thorn in her side. From day one, he showed that he wasn't there to collaborate but to compete. In meetings, he made a point of belittling her ideas and insinuating that she was only in her position out of luck. "Interesting proposal, Emily, but do we have the resources for that? Or is it just a baseless idea?" Mark said during one meeting. Emily took a deep breath, controlling herself. "I've already reviewed the budget, and we have the necessary margin to implement the project. Also, the long-term benefits outweigh the initial costs." Mark raised an eyebrow dismissively. "We'll see." Mark seemed determined to undermine Emily's confidence. He spread rumors about her competence, suggesting her achievements were the result of favoritism. He also tried to cozy up to Emily's colleagues, forming alliances to isolate her. Each day at work felt like a psychological battle, and Emily found herself constantly on edge, fearing Mark's next move. At home, things weren't much better. Lily, always perceptive, noticed her mother's growing stress. "Mom, are you okay?" she would ask, her big eyes full of concern. "I'm fine, sweetie. Just a bit tired," Emily would reply, trying to hide the truth. One afternoon, after an especially hard day, Emily decided to leave work early. She needed a moment of peace, away from the chaos of the office. She went to the cafe where she had helped the elderly man weeks before. Sitting by the window, she stared at the bustling street as she held her cup of coffee. What should she do? The options seemed limited, and the fear of unemployment paralyzed her. Suddenly, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "You're the young lady who helped me that day, aren't you?" It was the elderly man, George, whom she had helped at the cafe. He looked more lively and smiling and sat down at the table with Emily. "Yes, that's me," she replied with a smile. "How are you, George?" "Better, thanks to you," he said. "That help made a big difference for me that day. And you, how are you?" Emily sighed, feeling comfortable enough to open up. "Things at work are complicated. My ex-husband was hired, and he's making my life a living hell." George listened attentively, nodding understandingly. "Sometimes, life puts us in difficult situations to teach us something," he said thoughtfully. "But you don't have to endure this. There are other options, other doors that may open." George's words resonated deeply with Emily. She knew she was nearing a breaking point. But what were those other options? What else could she do to protect her peace of mind and ensure Lily's future? As they said goodbye, George promised to visit her again. Emily left the cafe with a mix of hope and uncertainty, reflecting on the possibility of changing her path. The following days were marked by increasing tension at work. Mark intensified his actions against Emily, sabotaging projects and creating embarrassing situations. On one occasion, he deliberately gave wrong information to an important client, almost jeopardizing a deal. Emily had to work overtime to fix the damage, feeling more exhausted and demotivated with each passing day. "Emily, are you still here?" asked a colleague, finding her working late at night. "Yes, I need to fix a problem," she replied, trying to hide her weariness. The situation became unbearable when Mark, in a meeting, implied that Emily's promotions were the result of personal favors, not her competence. "It's curious how some people rise in their careers, isn't it? Sometimes it seems it's not just about merit," Mark said, looking directly at Emily. Emily was stunned by the audacity and malice of his accusation. Her colleagues remained silent, some perhaps believing Mark's words, while others simply didn't want to get involved. Emily felt a deep sense of isolation and despair. It was then that Emily realized she couldn't continue like this. She had to do something to protect her mental and emotional health. After a sleepless night thinking about her options, she made a difficult decision. The next day, she requested a meeting with Mr. Thompson. Nervous but determined, Emily explained the unsustainable situation she was facing and informed him that she was resigning. "Emily, are you sure? You're a vital part of our team," Mr. Thompson said, surprised. "I am, Mr. Thompson. The situation with Mark has made it impossible to continue here. I need to prioritize my health and my daughter," Emily replied. Mr. Thompson was taken aback and tried to convince her to stay, emphasizing how much the company valued her. However, Emily was resolute. The toxicity of the environment, fueled by Mark's presence, had made it impossible to continue. With a heavy heart, she signed her resignation papers and said goodbye to her colleagues, feeling a mix of relief and fear for the future. Back at the cafe where she always found comfort, Emily sat to reflect on her choices. She felt lost, unsure of what her next step would be. George appeared again, almost as if by fate. He immediately noticed the change in Emily's expression and asked what had happened. "I quit," she said, almost in tears. "I couldn't take it anymore." George listened carefully without interrupting. After a brief silence, he looked at Emily with an approving expression. "You did what you needed to do," he said calmly. "Sometimes we have to let go of what harms us to make room for something better. And if I may say, I have a proposal for you." Emily was surprised. George explained that he owned several businesses and needed someone trustworthy to help manage one of them. He believed Emily was the right person for the job. Furthermore, the job offered the flexibility she so desperately needed to care for Lily. Emily was speechless. George's offer seemed like an answer to her prayers. After a few conversations and careful reflection, she accepted his proposal, seeing it as a chance to start over in a healthier, more positive environment. There was something comforting about knowing that, despite the challenges, there was always the possibility of new beginnings. Emily's first day at the new company was filled with a mix of nervousness and excitement. The company, which operated in business consulting, had a welcoming and friendly atmosphere. Her co-workers greeted her warmly, and she felt welcomed from the first moment. George made sure to introduce her to everyone, emphasizing her skills and the trust he had in her. "This is Emily, our new project manager. I'm sure she will bring many great things to the company," George announced with a smile. Among her new colleagues, Emily met John, a young operations manager. He was about 10 years younger than her but had a positive energy and professional approach that Emily immediately admired. John was assigned to help Emily adjust to her new role, and from the start, he showed himself to be helpful and attentive. "If you need anything, I'm here to help," John said, with a sincere smile. "Thank you, John. It's nice to feel welcomed," Emily replied, feeling comfortable with his kindness. As the weeks passed, Emily and John became good friends. They had lunch together, shared personal stories, and helped each other at work. John was a constant and comforting presence, and Emily felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. For the first time in years, she didn't feel overwhelmed or anxious. George's company provided a stable and respectful environment, something Emily deeply appreciated. "You seem more relaxed lately," John commented one day during lunch. "Yes, it's true. This place is amazing. Everyone is so professional and respectful," Emily said, appreciating the change. Outside of work, George continued to be an important figure in Emily and Lily's lives. He frequently visited their home, bringing gifts for Lily and sharing stories from his youth. George's presence brought a new kind of joy to Emily's home. Lily, in particular, adored Grandpa George, as she had begun calling him, and eagerly awaited his visits. "Grandpa George, can you tell that story again?" Lily would ask, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Of course, dear," George would reply with a warm smile. Over time, the friendship between Emily and John began to evolve into something more. John proved to be a true gentleman, always respectful and caring. He showed a genuine interest in getting to know Emily and Lily, and his kindness won the hearts of both. Emily, who at first was reluctant to get emotionally involved, began to open up to the possibility of new love. "John, you're so good with Lily." "Thank you for that," Emily said, touched by his kindness. "It's a pleasure being with you both. You've brought so much happiness into my life," John replied, looking into Emily's eyes. John, in turn, was drawn to Emily's strength and resilience. He admired how she balanced the responsibilities of being a single mother and a professional. During a dinner after work, John finally confessed his feelings. "Emily, I admire you in so many ways. I want to be by your side, not just as a friend, but as someone who loves you and wants to build a future with you," he said, his eyes full of sincerity. Emily was moved. It was rare to find someone who accepted her completely, with all her responsibilities and challenges. She looked at John, feeling the same affection and love. "I feel the same, John," she replied, holding his hand. It was the beginning of a new chapter in Emily's life, where love and happiness finally found a place in her heart. As Emily and John deepened their relationship, George became a true member of the family. He joined them for dinners, outings, and special moments, always bringing his wisdom and warmth. His presence was a constant reminder that life can bring wonderful surprises, even in the darkest times. "George, you're like a father to me," Emily said during a family dinner. "It's an honor to hear that, Emily. You're like the family I always wanted," George replied, emotionally. George shared more about his life with Emily. He had been a retired businessman who had built his empire from the ground up. After his wife's death, he distanced himself from the business world, but never lost interest in helping others. Emily was surprised to learn the extent of George's achievements and how much he had contributed to the community. "You really made a difference in many people's lives," Emily commented, impressed. "I just tried to do my best. And now, I'm happy to help you and Lily," George replied with a humble smile. One afternoon, during a visit, George made an unexpected proposal. "Emily, you've been a blessing to me. I want to offer something in return," he said with a warm smile. He then explained that one of his companies, a small business consultancy, needed new management. George wanted Emily to take over, with full autonomy to lead and expand the business. Emily was surprised and touched. The offer was a significant vote of confidence in her abilities. Moreover, the new position would provide the flexibility she needed to spend more time with Lily. After careful thought and with John's support, Emily accepted George's offer. "Do you really believe I can do this?" Emily asked, still in disbelief. "Emily, you are one of the most competent people I know. I have complete confidence in you," George affirmed, with conviction. In her new role, Emily threw herself into the work with passion and determination. She introduced new strategies and built a strong, united team. Under her leadership, the company began to thrive, gaining new clients and expanding its reach. Emily finally felt in control of her life and career without the shadows of the past haunting her. Meanwhile, Emily and John's relationship blossomed. They formed a solid partnership, both in work and in their personal lives. John moved into Emily's home, and together they created a loving and safe environment for Lily. The little girl became deeply attached to John, who treated her with love and respect as if she were his own daughter. "John, you're amazing with Lily. She adores you," Emily said with a grateful smile. "She's a special girl, just like her mom," John replied, caressing Emily's face. George continued to be a father figure and mentor to Emily. He visited frequently, bringing gifts and his comforting presence. During one of these visits, he spoke about his late wife, a woman with a big heart who always helped others. "She would have loved meeting you and Lily," George said, his eyes welling up. "You've brought me joy and a new reason to keep going." Emily was deeply touched by George's words. She felt blessed to have him in her life and for all the opportunities he had given her. The bond between them was more than friendship. It was a true family connection, built on mutual respect and care. Emily and John's wedding was an intimate event, surrounded by close friends and the family they had built. The ceremony took place in a beautiful garden, under a blue sky and surrounded by colorful flowers. George, as the best man, was radiant. He gave an emotional speech, talking about the power of love and kindness. "What began with a simple act of kindness led to so many wonderful things," he said, tears in his eyes. "Emily, you are living proof that sometimes life surprises us in unimaginable ways." After the wedding, Emily, John, and Lily settled into a new home, a cozy and loving place. The new family dynamic brought peace and happiness that Emily had never experienced before. John was a dedicated husband and a loving father to Lily. He actively participated in everything, from schoolwork to leisure moments. Lily, in turn, loved her new life and the affection she received from everyone. "Daddy John, can you help me with my homework?" Lily asked, smiling. "Of course. Let's do it," John replied enthusiastically, embracing the little girl. George continued to be a constant presence in their lives. He had officially become grandpa to Lily, who adored him. They spent afternoons together, playing games, reading stories, and simply enjoying each other's company. For George, these moments were priceless, a new phase of his life filled with meaning and joy. "Grandpa George, you're the best," Lily would say, jumping into his lap. "Oh, my dear, you are the blessing," George would reply with a broad smile. Emily thrived in her new role as the manager of George's company. She led with empathy and vision, inspiring her team and taking on new challenges. The company grew, and Emily felt fulfilled professionally. Additionally, The flexibility of the job allowed her to be present for Lily and support John in his own ambitions. Emily's life had changed in ways she could never have predicted. The simple act of helping a stranger at a cafe had set off a series of events that completely transformed her life. She found not only a new job, but also a new family and a fresh perspective on life. Emily learned that kindness, even in small gestures, can have a profound and lasting impact. Who would have thought all this would start with a cup of coffee? Emily joked one day, laughing with John and George. In the end, the woman who once used her last money to help an elderly man found a life full of love, happiness, and new possibilities. She, John, Lily, and George formed a unique and special family, united by fate and love. And so, they lived happily, supporting one another and appreciating every moment together, knowing that the true wealth of life lies in human connections and the ability to embrace the unexpected.